It is that time again to open up the Peacock and Williamson mailbag. We got questions about old school football. How much has really changed? Do teams still win up front? And what about the brand of football these days versus what some folks might remember nostalgically in the 80s and maybe even earlier? And Carson Wentz, a Los Angeles Ram. Will Levis, starter for the Tennessee Titans. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We love you. We appreciate you. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's start in Tennessee, Matt, where Mike Vrabel, and this is funny because a lot going on with the Titans right now, especially in the rumor mill with Vrabel and ties to New England and Bill Belichick, and I want to talk a little bit about that stuff too. But Mike Vrabel named Will Levis the starting quarterback, which was 100% the only option. But he'd kind of skated around it in recent weeks, and we'll see. We'll make a decision when Ryan Tannehill's healthy, and fans were like, fans were going to start calling for Vrabel to be fired if they didn't start.
Yeah,
there was only one decision to be made, and people are like, why are you acting like there's even a possibility that there's another decision to be made right now than starting Will Levis the rest of the year? So that one could kind of be put aside, and we know now that the right decision was made. Do you buy into any of these rumors, Matt, about Vrabel and potentially the New England job, and that maybe the Titans could end up trading Vrabel to the Patriots, and the Patriots could trade Bill Belichick somewhere in the offseason, and that ownership in New England really loves Vrabel, and that's the guy they want now running their team? Is this all just goofy stuff, or do you think there's some reality to this? We haven't seen a good old-fashioned coach trade in a long time.
It's craziness. First off, let's start with Levis and Tannehill. I think that absolutely had to be the call, no-brainer. But I do think people need to realize that Vrabel is very conscious of respecting Tannehill and all he's done for the organization. You can't just be like, he's done, throw him away. He's still going to be a valuable member of the quarterback room, a mentor. He's done a lot for the team, and he's well-respected. So you can't just – there's a personal side to being a head coach too, and a management of people. That kind of stuff's important.
I think that was a huge part of it too, and fans get a little bit restless, and so they're thinking Vrabel knows what we just said about there's only one decision to be made. He just wanted to do it right and do it correct publicly.
Exactly. I'm sure he told the team first, and told Tannehill first, and then the team, and right. It is the right move. As for Belichick, I feel stronger and stronger that he will not be the Patriots opening day coach next year. That's about as far as I can go with that. I mean, I don't know why I always think about Washington and him, probably for dumb reasons, because Vince Lombardi did that 40 years ago. It just seems like an organization that could use a Mount Rushmore type guy to show up and get things straightened out.
It's an organization that needs it, and that it's just a perfect timing fit as well for everything going on with both of those organizations. So that one, it's as weird as it sounds. It doesn't seem that far off, but it's just hard for me to. I can barely remember a time when Bill Belichick didn't coach the Patriots.
Right. Oh yeah, I hear you. Another side note, Vrabel is. So there's been a lot of talk lately with the firing in the Raiders, back to the Belichick coaching tree is junk, blah, 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 blah. And I think there's so much to that. Vrabel is not on the coaching tree. But why I bring that up is because that's been a lot of talk this last week or so because of the McDaniel firing. But you know who else fits the Vrabel mold? Kevin O'Connell. with the Vikings. Is it O'Connor or O'Connor?
O'Connell.
O'Connell. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I think Vrabel and O'Connell are two of the best coaches in the league, and are showing it time and time again. Top 10 type guys. Both were Patriots players, but not coaches. I'm just put my antenna up for that, you know?
I feel like they still get a branch on the tree, but it's not like one of the main branches. It kind of counts, but it doesn't. You know what they also both have is like this stoic calmness about them.
Yeah.
When you see them on the sidelines, no matter if things going well or going bad in a game, they kind of have the same look, and that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
No, I mean, you think of Vrabel as an emotional guy, but he's not exactly, screaming and throwing things. He is pretty calm and on top of it. And why I brought up the two players is I'm sure there's so much to learn in the Patriot way, and being in that building for as much as they were, and being on the same team as Tom Brady. But all those other guys were in the coaches' meeting rooms and in the film room and the draft room, like non-player stuff, that didn't hit. I'm just open to the idea that maybe some Patriots is good, maybe not all mimicking Bill is good,
Professional Uno players question here on Twitter is Vrabel the right coach to develop a quarterback? I'm a little nervous, he says, for Levis. Vrabel seems to be all gas all the time, doesn't seem to have patience for growing pains of a rookie quarterback. And that's sort of let's win every day, every week mentality. I could see that. But that's, I don't, it's not totally up to him. He's not the quarterback coach. He's not the offensive coordinator either. You need a lot of talent around him. I don't know. I think stability can help a quarterback a lot. And as long as there's not any thoughts of, trading Mike Vrabel or firing him anytime soon, I think it could be a fine place to develop as long as there's some talent around.
Especially on the O-line. The O-line is like the least talent in the league, and it keeps getting more and more injured. So I know I bring things back to the Steelers all the time, but we just watched Titans Steelers on Thursday night, and these teams are such carbon copies of each other. I think Vrabel and Tomlin have so much in common with the way they coach, and I think that's a good thing for quarterbacks, because you're probably going to have the same head coach, at least for your rookie deal. I don't think either one of these guys is going anywhere, most likely. Who knows? I mean, I guess the Patriot thing could happen. Who knows? I mean, however, the why I say that is I have this conversation all the time in Pittsburgh. And with Kenny Pickett, it's almost become, a very easy analysis. If he throws one interception, Pickett, the Steelers almost always lose. If he throws none, they almost always win. So he definitely reels it in, especially the first three quarters of play, doesn't want to make a mistake, plays cautiously. And I'm not excusing Pickett, but it's one of the reasons he's not playing to his potential, in my opinion. But the Steelers keep winning. So they're going to keep doing what they're doing. Like, Tomlin cares about winning on Sunday, and that means don't turn the ball over Kenny. But is it the best thing to turn him into the next Ben Roethlisberger, hopefully?
Right.
Probably not.
It's hard to be a superstar quarterback if your only goal is to not lose the game.
Exactly. But Brady started his career that way. Ben threw like 13 passes a game when they were 15-1 and he was a rookie. I mean, so once you earn it, you can get the more. I just think Vrabel might take the same approach. Like, hey, Will, throw that away. Don't try to drive it into triple coverage.
We got notes on the Rams quarterback situation. Carson Wentz now the newest Ram, and some other quarterbacks on the way out. Hardly knew you, Brett Rippon. Hardly knew you, Dresser Win. That and more questions from the Peacock and Williamson mailbag next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app right now and get some tickets for your next favorite event, no matter if it's sports, music, comedy, theater events, anything near you. A special offer in just a minute for our listeners at Game Time, because you shouldn't worry when you're buying tickets for your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all of the events near you, NFL football included, and with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. It couldn't be easier. If for me, it was in San Francisco a couple months ago. I was like, okay, game time. Let's go. We go see a Friday night off. Going to go see a Giants game. And boom, tickets there. You see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what you get when you arrive. All the prices are there total up front, so you know what you're getting. And there's no hidden fees there, which I hate when I'm buying tickets. And, less than an hour before game time, boom, couple taps, got the tickets. They're right there on the app. You don't have to go fishing through emails or anything when you get to your event. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Taking a look at the Los Angeles Rams here, and I did a little deep dive. It was a shallow dive on Tommy DeVito because I just didn't know enough about the undrafted quarterback that was apparently going to play.
Did you hear the news?
What's that?
I have to interrupt because as you were doing the read there, I got a notification on my phone because we were talking about this before we hit record. Our boy DeVito getting the start. Let's go.
Okay,
against Dallas. I think it's a start. I think it's a primetime game we get to see. All right.
Yeah. I thought we had flex games for this very reason. There's some. We're going to get into this tomorrow and Friday.
16-point favorites already.
There are some funky games out there on the schedule this week. But another player, because it's funny, is I made fun of the Rams in the offseason about having a roster of what sounded like made up players, and they signed a guy named Dresser Wynn last week at a University of Tennessee Martin. I'd never heard of him before. He maybe turns into a superstar quarterback. I don't know, but he's already been released now from the practice squad. And the guy who started last week for the Rams with Stafford out, Brett Rippon, he's been waived as well from the Rams. And now they've signed Carson Wentz, and it looks like Stafford is going to be able to play this week. And Carson
They're off
Wentz
this week, so he comes back after that. Yeah.
Right, after the bye, then the next game, it looks like he's on track to play, and now they have a new backup to get ready to play in Carson Wentz, who, I mean, people must really hate Carson Wentz that he was on the street with guys like DeVito and Dresser Wynn getting signed before him.
Yeah, I've been saying that a while about Wentz, and maybe to his credit, maybe there's some injury we don't know about. Maybe he was picking and choosing where he's going to play. I mean, I don't know, but I can't believe he couldn't have played over many of the dudes we've seen. So the Packers just beat the Rams, the Rippon-led Rams, and now they're coming to Pittsburgh. So I've been scouting the Packers heavily. Boy, I can see why they cut Rippon right after that game. I mean, I'm sure McVay looks at his team, Kupp, Nakua, and thinks, in this terrible NFC, we could be the 7 seed, I mean, with Stafford and some respectable non-Rippon-like quarterback play. And the Packers aren't good at all, and they totally owned that game. Like a healthy Rams team probably beats them, So I think McVay looked at it and said, maybe Wentz is a problem child. Maybe he has his warts, but he has a lot of Stafford-esque qualities. I mean, he's not as good, but it's you're not changing your offense, tactically. And he can sit here, learn from Matthew, and will probably be a lot better off if Stafford misses time again. I can't live with Rippon.
Right. And you're almost letting down. There was a scene with Aaron Donald really upset after the game.
Yeah.
He hates losing. And you probably as a coach are thinking, all right, well, this is, we're letting our team down too much. We can't just throw away games if we're not going to get professional caliber quarterback play. And who knows, Brett Rippon, not to rip him, but he'll probably end up back on the practice squad or something like that. At least Carson Wentz could, physically get the ball out to receivers for your offense.
Right.
How much has the modern game really changed? We got a couple of interesting questions here in the hopper, Matt. One from Crime Dong. He says, do you still win football games up front in today's NFL, or is this view antiquated? Always taught you to win games on the offensive and defensive lines, being more physical, pushing guys backwards, shedding blocks, etc. But is it all about speed and skill players now in fantasy football type of stats and numbers? And then Mark says, I'm 55. Can't believe how the overall play in the current NFL, run blocking, quarterback play with a few exceptions, officiating, all stink. 70s to 2000s were high quality, dominant teams. Seems to be 5 or 6 good teams and 26 average to bad teams. What happened? And is this sustainable in the NFL?
Well, I like to quote Michael Lombardi, who I think is one of the best analysts out there right now. And I think this is topical because I mentioned the Raiders firing. Well, overlooked in all that was their offensive coordinator, who happens to be Mike Lombardi's son, was also let go. So Lombardi's been asked a lot about Raiders, of course, and he used to work for Mr. Davis way back when. So there's a relationship between his family and the Davises, of course. And why I'm saying this is because I agree with him in that he said if he took over the Raiders, actually, he said something I've been saying for a while, where the mistake was made with this organization was going all in on Devontae Adams, because Bill Walsh believed that Lombardi learned from Belichick, Walsh, and Davis. I mean, that's pretty darn good. He used to drive, Bill Walsh around when he was in his 20s. But Walsh believed the last piece of any puzzle team building should be a receiver or running back. I mean, and Lombardi says the same thing in that if he were in charge of the Raiders or Giants or any struggling team, he would do everything in his power to find his quarterback, knowing full well you might not have enough power to get him. And then everything in your power with your remaining assets on the lines of scrimmage. That's where you start. And I 100% agree with that. If I were taking over an expansion team, when in doubt, I'd draft an extra defensive lineman, even though my D-line's good. I just keep drafting linemen left and right. And then down the road, you trade for the A.J. Browns and Tyreeks, or if you want, once ever the foundation's in place. They did it too soon with Adams.
And thinking that they were good enough elsewhere to win games, just plugging in a star receiver.
Yeah, we're a receiver away, with Carr and Garoppolo, no, you're not.
They did it for 2 straight off seasons. So now that you're 2 years behind where you should be.
Mm-hmm. Lineman. So, yeah, I do believe that.
Yeah. So that is not an antiquated idea, winning up front. Look at the good teams around the NFL. The Chiefs, they're playing great defense. They have got a good offensive line. The Lions got a great offensive line. The Philadelphia Eagles got great lines, both sides of the ball. Maybe the best combination of lines on both sides of the ball. They've been, 1 seed in the NFC multiple years running now, or leading the NFC this year for that reason. So that is not antiquated at all to build up front. You still should. And you still have to tackle people. Maybe there's more speed. And to be honest with you, some of the fundamentals where it's harder to teach them because you practice less. And that kind of goes to the other question from Mark about how football looks now versus how it used to. I think there's a lot going on with that question. And some of it is practice time. You're not tackling full speed all camp long, between weeks. You're also, I think, you see more now. Like there's a lot more looking behind the curtain than there used to be, right? You used to be looking on this television. You're pretty zoomed out. You can't see all the bad that's happening. There wasn't
an internet.
There was less rules.
There was no internet. Yeah.
Officiating stinks because it's too hard because there's more they have to do. They used to sit there and say, I don't know. Here's where the ball is. They're still doing the chain thing too, which I can't believe.
Which is unbelievable.
Officiating used to be a lot easier because there was less that was illegal, and so
and it was less scrutinized. You'd watch. Yeah. You couldn't even watch Red Zone. I mean, you watched whatever game they put on TV, and then you got psyched for Monday Night Football. You saw 6 to 8 teams a week if you really tried hard. I mean, you couldn't even. I don't even know if you go to you don't think you go to sports bars with TVs everywhere. I mean, you just got whatever people showed you. So you saw a lot of the Cowboys and Giants and the big market teams. There was no internet. There was no Twitter. There was no instant replay. I don't know if it was better, but I will say that era, I would say the football players were more fundamentally sound. I have buddies that played for Chuck Knoll that I work with now. That'll be like, when things got out of track, we spent a whole week blocking and tackling, and that wasn't uncommon back then. Bear Bryant, get back to blocking and tackling. There's something to be said for that.
Yeah. And there's a lot less put on quarterbacks' plates. Now quarterbacks do so much more and younger and all the motion and all this stuff. Could you imagine one of those slow teams in the, 70s, 90s, even trying to play against the Dolphins right now? Their heads would be spinning, right?
I mean, they rarely went to nickel.
Right. But that
was a big deal to put an extra defensive back
and
on.
They wouldn't be able to do the things that you would have been able to do then to stop that, which is clothesline the hell out of somebody that's trying to run that 5-yard crosser.
Right. You might not want to throw over the middle against Jack Tatum back then, but I don't know that they would have any clue how to deal with the motions and play action. And I mean, you're a little younger than me, but I remember when I was a kid, I would sit there and draw X's and O's, and you always drew the tight end on the line of scrimmage to the quarterback's right, 2 backs. You might get creative and have 2 split backs, or you have an eye.
I love the pro split back formation. Love it.
Yeah, with their hand on the ground in a 3-point stance in the backfield,
yeah. When's the last time you saw someone lined up in the backfield with their hand in the ground?
Yeah. So I have to take a chance to tell the story, and I don't mean it to be disrespectful at all, because I have great respect for Paul Warfield, who's a tremendous human being and is an all-time great, and he's a Hall of Famer. But he's also from a different generation, and he was on the Browns staff as a scout with me. And I remember vividly when we broke down wide receivers for the draft, he suggested, I really think some of these wide receivers would be better off coming out of a 3-point stance like I did. This was 25 years ago. The suggestion was made, and no one was even doing it then. I'm not saying it was better then, but I just couldn't help myself but to tell that story. I was like, did that really just happen?
Yeah, it's very different. The game has changed quite a bit from a passing game perspective, and how intricate it is. But like we mentioned a minute ago, it still starts up front. You still got to be able to block and tackle, and you can't get your quarterback killed. So being solid up front is important. And teams used to stay together. Players stayed together longer too. So more practice. One guy stays in the same place for 8 years.
Right. So a couple other notes. I mean, it's not that long. Well, at least in my lifetime, they changed the rules where you're allowed to use your hands to block people. Remember, you do forearms, I mean, that's how it started. And that's how it was when I was a kid. I mean, you weren't allowed to put your palms of your hands on a pass rusher. There'd be 100 sacks a game now if they did that.
Oh, my God. And can you imagine? Can you use your hands, you can pretty much hang on as long as you just hang on in the right place.
Right. So definitely the size and speed has changed dramatically. Yeah. But you mentioned, teams sticking together. Williamson brings it back to the Steelers. But imagine the Steelers of the 70s. I mean, they drafted every one of those dudes. And I always make the joke, like, if you were the Steelers' first-round pick in 1977, you're not even going to be a starter. I mean, you're like barely making the team. Like, they don't need starters. I mean, like, the team's been together forever. You're going to beat out Ham and Lambert, you're just no chance.
All right. More questions in this mailbag episode. We've got questions about grilled cheeseburgers. So we're talking about grilled cheeses, combo cheeseburger. I don't know if we'll get to that one.
Yeah.
But some good ones as well. And especially about how to decide when a team is fixed, when a unit is fixed. Speaking of teams playing high level football. Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by DoorDash. Why root for your favorite team on an empty stomach? It's hard to do. It's impossible to do for me. So when it's halftime, when it's the 2-minute warning, or when you're just prepping and getting ready for that football watch party, find all your favorites at DoorDash. And for me, one of my favorites locally here in San Francisco, how about Kezar Pubs, right across the street from the old Kezar Stadium where the 49ers used to play 2 stadiums ago. And the bourbon wings, the bullet bourbon wings. They are fantastic for watching your favorite sport. You can get them on DoorDash. Order pizza, wings, soda, burgers, whatever it is. You can get retail and groceries as well to cook up your own football watch party utilizing DoorDash. And for our listeners, 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. Don't forget, use code LOCKED23 for 50% off up to $10 value on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and spend $15 or more with DoorDash. Okay, let's go to Sir Madramissimo on Twitter. How do you know a unit suddenly got fixed, or is it all just matchups? We see the Bengals, Ravens offenses now clicking, Dolphins D versus Chiefs. Matchup fluke, or has someone like Fangio figured it out now?
I don't have a great answer for that. I don't think there's a foolproof, now I know it's fixed. But this is the way NFL folks talk, and I think the Dolphins D and Bengals O is the best example of this. Is if you cite season-long stats in November, the league really looks at things in 4-game increments. You know, what were the last 4 games for this team? That's a better picture than the entire season. Certainly the Bengals are a great example of there was an obvious point when his calf was better, you know, and where it was no longer hindering him. And if you take it from that point on, they're going a long way. You know, I mean, to what you're really going to play against or what you're seeing. So advanced scouting is more about the last 4 games than it is 8, 9, 10, 16, whatever. You know, if you're playing a playoff game, do you really care what the team did in week 4? You know, I mean, not really. You probably aren't even watching that tape. I do think the Bengals O is 100% fixed, and we all know why. And I think Fangio is a great thing to bring up too, because I think he now, as the new defensive coordinator, knows exactly what he's working with. It's not just Ramsey's back, but that defense is turning a corner very rapidly too.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need to, figure out just this little tweak. Maybe you just need to move your defensive tackles here because teams are gouging you in this one gap, and there's just little tweaks, and then somebody figures out something else, and now you got to counter to the counter. So even though you got it fixed, you might have to fix something else now 2 weeks later. So it's ongoing, and that's why coaching's so difficult, and having good players and having players that know the system and know how to fix things and implement what you're trying to do. So it's kind of never ending. So I would say nobody's fixed, but when you have things like, oh, now we have great quarterback play when we had garbage quarterback play, that's something that's kind of fixed.
Yeah. No doubt. Like small thing. I mean, not a small thing. It's a huge thing in the coaching world is maybe a new defensive coordinator thinks I have a free safety that can handle deep middle responsibilities. And then you realize 3 games in, no, he really can't, and I don't have anybody that can. So we're done with that, small example. Right.
So now you're going more too deep, but now there's, space somewhere else. And now offenses see that. And now the next team that didn't realize that's what you're going to do knows that's what you're going to do. And so then now they can implement that. Now you got to, again, adjust to the adjustments.
Exactly. I mean, that happens through the course of a game.
Your boy Mark Cavalli has a question for you. He says, how many grilled cheeseburgers can you eat in one sitting? My question, though, the follow-up immediately is, what is a grilled cheeseburger? I don't think I've ever had a grilled cheeseburger. I've had cheeseburgers, had grilled cheese. I don't know if I've ever combined those before.
So Caboli's a good dude. He's the beat writer for The Athletic for the Steelers. So I see him every Thursday when I go down to the facility, see him at camp, blah, 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 blah. Funny guy. But I'm sure he is referencing Sharky's, which is the only place we hang out in Latrobe for Steeler camp, because they have some obscene things on the menu that, former Steeler Max Starks, who's like the biggest human being you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Will eat these cheeseburger grilled cheese, like it's a cheeseburger with a grilled cheese on top, a grilled cheese on the bottom, like Max will eat 2 of them. Like I can't.
It's a cheeseburger, but instead of just having a bun, it's a grilled cheese sandwich for the bun on both sides.
Yes. So there's 4 pieces of bread.
Yeah.
Like bread, cheese, bread, burger, fixins, bread, cheese, bread.
Wow.
It's pretty bonkers. They also have it's a stromboli, but instead of the wrap, it's a whole cheese pizza is the wrap. Like there's some crazy things that happen at camp at Sharky's, and then someone asked me about the soup too. I mean, now this might be a whole podcast. This is one of my passions around here.
I didn't even understand this question.
I'm sure you didn't, but the Steeler cafeteria, whether it's a training camp or on the south side here, Pittsburgh, where they're always at, might have the best soup I've ever had in my life. It definitely is. And it doesn't even matter what kind. And I mean, it's unbelievably good. There's always 2 to pick from. And I have this idea, Super Steelers soup, the soup the players eat, and bottle it, can it, whatever, sell it all around here, put TJ Watt's face on the front of it, whatever, maybe Coach Tomlin, whatever. And you would sell so much of it, benefits Pittsburgh soup kitchens. How about that? And Matt Williams.
Love it.
and 2% of proceeds go to me.
Super Bowl, but it's spelled SOUPER is what.
See, well, that's my dilemma.
Okay.
So the Steelers of the 70s are called the Super Steelers.
Yeah.
So should it be SUPER, Super Steelers Soup?
Oh, gotcha.
And maybe have Joe Green on the cover.
Yeah.
Or is it SUPER, just to add more soup to the equation? Super Steelers Soup. The soup the players eat. You just got to combine the word soup and super into one somewhere. So I would say
Since they were called the Super Steelers, you got to call it Super Steeler Soup. But with
Exactly.
the super
It is
spelled with soup.
That's what I'm unsure of. I just don't know how to spell super. It's definitely Super Steeler Soup, the soup the Steelers, or the soup the Steelers eat, or the soup the players eat.
So
but either way,
it's got to say super twice. It's got to say Steelers twice, and it's got to say soup twice.
Yeah. So I'm going with Super Steelers Soup, the soup the Steelers eat.
Love it. That's it.
And it's gold. So
and it's got to have a picture of somebody that's won a Super Bowl. So you can't.
Yeah, maybe Joe Green's on the cover or Bradshaw or somebody like that. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, fantastic. I'm glad we got that one figured out.
Okay.
Appreciate all the fantastic questions like the Super Steelers Soup, the soup the Steelers eat, and appreciate all
benefiting Pittsburgh soup kitchens.
yeah, it benefits for charity. I love it. And what's the flavor of the soup though? Oh,
there's so many good ones.
Grilled cheeseburger soup.
They do have a cheeseburger soup that's phenomenal. The clam chowder is the best I've had, but I mean, even like stuff I don't like beef barley is good there. You know, like everything. The soup's awesome. Yeah.
Oh, you're speaking. I'm a soup guy, so you're speaking.
Oh, you'd love it. You'd love it.
Fantastic. Apologies for the questions we didn't get to, but keep them coming all week long. You can drop a question on YouTube or at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL on Twitter. Appreciate all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Matt and I back tomorrow. It's time to make picks for week 10 right here. Peacock and Williamson.